Welcome to Jimmy's Trivia Spotlight Show. Today's challenge is 50 general knowledge questions. No multiple choice, just your instincts and a little luck. You'll have time to think, and a 3-second countdown will appear when time's almost up. Good luck, the spotlight's yours. Let's begin. What is the smallest planet in our solar system? Mercury is the correct answer. Fun fact: Mercury is only slightly bigger than Earth's moon, but it's the closest planet to the sun. Who was known as the King of Pop? Michael Jackson is the correct answer. Fun fact: his album Thriller is still one of the best-selling albums of all time. Which country has the most pyramids in the world? Sudan is the correct answer. Fun fact: Sudan actually has more pyramids than Egypt, over 200 of them. Who wrote the play Romeo and Juliet? The correct answer is William Shakespeare. Fun fact: Shakespeare wrote Romeo and Juliet around 1595, and it remains one of the most performed plays worldwide. What is the chemical symbol for gold? AU is the correct answer. Fun fact: the symbol comes from the Latin word aurum, meaning shining dawn. What is the largest planet in our solar system? Jupiter is the correct answer. Fun fact: Jupiter is so massive it could fit all the other planets inside it, with room to spare. What is the capital of Japan? Tokyo is the correct answer. Fun fact: Tokyo is the most populous metropolitan area in the world. Who painted the Mona Lisa? Leonardo da Vinci is the correct answer. Fun fact: the Mona Lisa has no visible eyebrows. They faded over time. What is the hardest natural substance on Earth? The correct answer is diamond. Fun fact: diamonds can only be scratched by other diamonds. How many continents are there? The correct answer is 7. Fun fact: Europe and Asia are technically one landmass called Eurasia. What gas do plants absorb from the atmosphere? The correct answer is carbon dioxide. Fun fact: plants release oxygen as a waste product. What is the tallest mountain in the world? Mount Everest is the correct answer. Fun fact: Everest grows about 1 inch taller every year due to tectonic activity. What is the fastest land animal? The correct answer is cheetah. Fun fact: a cheetah can go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 3 seconds. What is the largest ocean on Earth? Pacific Ocean is the correct answer. Fun fact: it covers more area than all land on Earth combined. What is the main ingredient in guacamole? The correct answer is avocado. Fun fact: avocados are technically berries. What is the smallest country in the world? Vatican City is the correct answer. Fun fact: it has fewer than 1,000 residents. What is the longest river in the world? The correct answer is Nile River. Fun fact: the Nile flows through 11 countries. What is the largest mammal? Blue whale is the correct answer. Fun fact: its heart is the size of a small car. What is the capital of Australia? The correct answer is Canberra. Fun fact: it was chosen as a compromise between Sydney and Melbourne. What is the most spoken language in the world? English is the correct answer. Fun fact: Mandarin has the most native speakers. What is the square root of 64? Eight is the correct answer. Fun fact: 64 is a perfect square and a perfect cube. What is the longest-running TV show in history? The Simpsons is the correct answer. Fun fact: it premiered in 1989 and is still going strong. What is the largest desert in the world? Antarctica is the correct answer. Fun fact: deserts are defined by dryness, not heat. What is the currency of the United Kingdom? The correct answer is pound sterling. Fun fact: it's the oldest currency still in use. What is the human body's largest organ? The correct answer is skin. Fun fact: your skin renews itself every 28 days. What is the chemical formula for water? The correct answer is H2O. Fun fact: water is the only substance that naturally exists in all three states on Earth. Who was the first person to walk on the moon? The correct answer is Neil Armstrong. Fun fact: his famous quote was slightly misheard due to radio static. What is the capital of Canada? Ottawa is the correct answer. Fun fact: it's colder than most major Canadian cities. What is the largest internal organ in the human body? The correct answer is liver. Fun fact: it can regenerate itself. What is the most widely consumed beverage in the world after water? The correct answer is tea. Fun fact: Over 3 billion cups are consumed daily. What is the main gas in Earth's atmosphere? The correct answer is nitrogen. Fun fact: it makes up about 78% of the air. What is the longest bone in the human body? Femur is the correct answer. Fun fact: it's stronger than concrete. What is the capital of Italy? The correct answer is Rome. Fun fact: Rome has a country inside it, Vatican City. What is the world's most popular sport? The correct answer is soccer. Fun fact: the World Cup is the most watched event on Earth. What is the freezing point of water in Celsius? The correct answer is 0 degrees Celsius. Fun fact: salt lowers the freezing point. That's why we salt roads. Who invented the telephone? Alexander Graham Bell is the correct answer. Fun fact: his first words on the phone were, "Mr. Watson, come here." What is the largest species of shark? The correct answer is whale shark. Fun fact: despite their size, they eat tiny plankton. What is the capital of Egypt? The correct answer is Cairo. Fun fact: it's the largest city in the Arab world. What is the fastest bird? The correct answer is peregrine falcon. Fun fact: it can dive at over 200 miles per hour. What is the most common blood type? O positive is the correct answer. Fun fact: O negative is the universal donor. What is the largest island in the world? Greenland is the correct answer. Fun fact: it's mostly covered in ice. What is the capital of Brazil? Brasilia is the correct answer. Fun fact: the city was designed to look like an airplane from above. What is the main ingredient in hummus? Chickpeas is the correct answer. Fun fact: chickpeas have been eaten for over 7,000 years. What is the smallest bone in the human body? The correct answer is stapes. Fun fact: it's about the size of a grain of rice. What is the most visited country in the world? France is the correct answer. Fun fact: it receives over 80 million tourists a year. What is the chemical symbol for sodium? The correct answer is Na. Fun fact: it comes from the Latin word natrium. What is the world's largest rainforest? The correct answer is the Amazon. Fun fact: it produces 20% of the world's oxygen. What is the capital of India? New Delhi is the correct answer. Fun fact: it's part of the larger city of Delhi. What is the longest-running Broadway show? The Phantom of the Opera is the correct answer. Fun fact: it ran for 35 years before closing in 2023. What is the largest bird in the world? Ostrich is the correct answer. Fun fact: they can run up to 45 miles per hour. What is the most widely eaten meat in the world? The correct answer is pork. Fun fact: it accounts for over 1/3 of global meat consumption. What is the hottest planet in our solar system? Venus is the correct answer. Fun fact: its thick atmosphere traps heat better than Mercury, even though Mercury is closer to the sun. Thanks so much for playing along with the very first episode of Jimmy's Trivia Spotlight Show. I hope you had fun and maybe even surprised yourself with a few answers. Let me know your score in the comments. Bragging is absolutely allowed. If you enjoyed this, hit that subscribe button and stick around. I've got plenty more trivia, challenges, and surprises coming your way. Until next time, stay curious.